The lunar bases are considered impregnable, hidden behind technologies capable of rendering walls permeable. In secrecy, highly advanced researchers observe human behavior, test reactions, and analyze our deepest thoughts and ambitions. This video takes you into a world of secret contacts, invisible companions, and a future in which humanity is more than just an object of research. Hello, my name is Frank Harfer, and in the Akasha-Interviews I work as an information medium, documenting and publishing questions and answers about consciousness, humanity, and our place in the universe. With that said, let's turn to the question. Entry. A0229. What happened during the moon landings? All moon landings actually took place, and Neil Armstrong was the first human who officially set foot on the lunar surface. Many things occurred there that you know nothing about. The space agency knew that something lives on the moon, but they did not know who or what it is, nor why this is so. The lunar missions were meant to clarify this, and we also believe that most of the astronauts were initiated, although no one possessed the complete knowledge, only as much as was necessary for the mission at the time. When Neil Armstrong placed his foot on the lunar surface, it was not the moment that is seen in the images. By this we mean, many of the images and recordings are not authentic because they had already been produced beforehand. The official astronauts truly did set foot on the moon, but the historic moment is not genuine and was staged. Neil Armstrong was there, officially exited the spacecraft as the first astronaut, and stepped onto the lunar surface on that historic day. But some of the recordings are not authentic, for they were not alone, and those responsible for the mission were aware beforehand that this might occur. So they had prepared alternatives, which were indeed used in some instances. When the Apollo crew landed, many onlookers were already present and closely observed what the men were doing there. The crew had not actually intended to land where they did, but even there much was to be discovered. Much in the images has been edited afterward because there was indeed quite a lot to see. If you were to examine the images more closely, you could discover areas that differ from the rest of the image. For example, artifacts were retouched so that they could no longer be recognized. We also believe that the majority of the images do not show what was actually visible. Take the images with the spacecraft. In none of the images can the entire area be seen, and where a portion is missing, something was concealed. We do not mean that the entire area is not visible in the photos, but that many sections were edited in such a way that the actual structures and devices could not be discovered. If you look at the images, you will discover areas along the slopes of the lunar mountains that stand out unusually from their surroundings and were added afterward in order to conceal something extraordinary. Much work and effort was put into manipulating the original photographs so that the truth about them could continue to remain hidden. The crew recorded everything and also brought artifacts back to Earth. By this we do not mean technological achievements, but modified lunar rock. Many of these stones bear symbols that for the most part have not yet been understood. The astronauts noticed the foreign beings even before landing and were observed by them throughout the entire mission. The foreign beings were not only inhabitants of the moon, for many extraterrestrial species also wanted to be present when the first human officially sets foot on another celestial body. They observed the mission, but they would not have intervened if something had happened. What do we mean by that? If the mission had failed because the landing of the spacecraft had gone wrong, the beings would not have intervened. If the spacecraft had not been able to lift off from the lunar surface, the beings would likewise not have intervened. That would have meant the death of the astronauts. But it would have been accepted because humanity is not yet at the stage where it can officially travel among the stars as a civilization. Therefore, these first attempts would not have been influenced by more highly developed species. On the slopes of the lunar mountains, many ornaments and drawings could be recognized. Entrances to bases were also visible there. The crew did not get close to the bases because they were too far from the planned landing site. Many of the following crews were at least able to reach these entrances, but the intact bases were not entered by them either. There has never been direct contact with the lunar population because this was forbidden by the councils of the Moon's population. They did not want there to be a single nation that would manage this contact alone. Therefore, there can only be contact between the beings of the Moon and the Earth if your planet were represented by a council to which the numerous races of the Earth belong. That is why there has been no official contact. Even without direct contact, the astronauts saw much that they cannot properly classify to this day, although they always knew that it was a populated celestial body. The crew saw many things that indicated activity by these beings. The large lunar bases that are often described by you, however, do not exist. There are structures on the surface of the Moon, but they are not gigantic towers or cities, as you often assume. Rather, everything extraordinary takes place within the Moon. We must also say that it is far more fantastic than you could possibly imagine. Many large cities have been created beneath the surface of the Moon. Many beings live there, and we also say that they lack nothing. They are not cold and dark caves, as you might suppose, but these cities are bright, vast, and furnished with landscapes the likes of which you have never seen. The scribe does not like it when we speak so magnificently about something without providing concrete evidence. But we can only describe what it looks like there in comparison to the ordinary places, you know, and then our description is truly not exaggerated. There are several races that live and work there. Many of these races are peaceful, and we also believe that they pose no danger whatsoever. The Moon does not belong to one race. Rather, everyone is permitted to be there as long as they adhere to the general customs. Should a race violate them, the other races can ensure that this race must leave the celestial body. Where no one is present, a race or even a group may settle. Some places are inhabited by beings who prefer to remain among themselves, and all inhabitants and visitors should respect this. Otherwise, their actions could be interpreted as aggressive. How can someone recognize that a place is already inhabited? Not every species is telepathically inclined, so there must be another way for a group of extraterrestrial beings to claim a place for themselves. It is generally known that each group that settles in a location not only creates an inhabited base there, but also alters the environment around the base in such a way that it can be recognized from afar that this place is inhabited. This is often accomplished by working the lunar rock. By this we mean the following. If a group settles in a lunar crater, they always build their base beneath the lunar surface, and on the central mountain or along the slopes of the crater, symbols or ornaments are created that identify the respective group. Many groups have become widely known through their representations, so that beings immediately know who lives there, even if the depictions are not origin-specific, but merely indicate that the place is no longer available. The Moon belongs to no one, and yet to everyone. We also say, much of what you know from Egyptian achievements can be found again in areas on the Moon. Numerous humans have already unofficially been on the Moon, but we will tell more about that in the following parts, in which we will also examine the origin of the Moon more closely. This entry, along with many others, is available on my website. The content is published in German, but modern browsers make translation straightforward. You'll find a direct link to this blog entry and further helpful information in the video description.